Today is Thursday, August 4th, 2022. It is all day 178 of Builder, and today I'm going to do another text animation with geometry nodes because, again, practice makes better. So I'm going to click on a new geometry node system, disconnect the input from the output, Shift A, and get a string to curve node. And I'm going to connect the curve instances to the geometry so I'll be able to see it. But the reason I don't see anything in the layout yet is because I have anything set as my string, which is my text. So I think I'm going to say something like, I don't know, something random, like always, like woohoo. And I'll be able to see it. Okay. Now, in order to give it, to kind of see it in the right way, I'll put a transform node and change the rotation. So it rotates 90 degrees across the red axis, which in this case is the x-axis. And now to give it some fill, I'll do Shift A and get a fill curve node and put that in there. And I'll change the fill type to n-gons. And then I'll do Shift A and get an extrude mesh node and put that in here. And that's going to give the mesh some extrusion. It's going to give the letter some thickness. And I'm just going to change that to be 0.1. Oops. All right, but if I notice in the back, the fill not applied in the back, it's like hollow inside. So to fix that, I'll do Shift A and get a join geometry node and put that right before the end over here. And I'll join both the extrusion mesh node and also the fill curve node. And now the fill is going to be both in the front and in the back. Now I go back to my string and I like to have, change the font to be Arial Black. And then I think that's pretty good. So that's it kind of for the visual of the string besides the material. So I'll do the material now. I'll do Shift A and set material, and I'll go to, before anything, I'll Control S to save. I'll just change it to 8/4/22, which is today's date. And I don't believe I have, let me just do blends in here. Save Blender file, and then I'm gonna go to shading. And then while that loads, I have like this color palette, and I'm going to basically change every, like randomly like assign a color to each of the, what do you call it, the letters, in the shading workspace. So that's going to take a second. All right, so this is what it looks like. So I have my woohoo here, and then I have this little section over here. I have a principled BSDF and a material output. While I'm going to need, what I'm going to need over here is an object information node, which holds the information of an object. And then I'm also going to get a color ramp and put that in here. I'm going to connect the color to the base color, and then I'm going to connect the random to the factor of the color ramp. All right. And then as I'm going to click on the tags, I'm going to go back over here and just pick a random color, and I'm going to click what just happened. Okay, I'm going to click on the little tags and then click on the color hex and then paste that color in there. And I might be able to see it, but I want it to be not like a linear gradient. I want it to be so that it's constant. It's either color that I say, but let me see real quick. Why is this open? It's because I accidentally clicked on it. All right, let me get some more colors and put that in here. This thing like freezes every single time. Okay, and I'll just click on this color over here and paste that in there. And I'll go back and, oh, I know why it's not showing up. I'll click on another color and paste that in there in the hex code. All right, and I'll go back to my geometry nodes, and all I have to do is select the material that I have here, go back to shading, and I'll be able to see it. All right, beautiful. And then let me just get some more colors in there. And then maybe this one, or maybe I kind of liked it the way that it was already. So I'll do something like that. I think that looks really nice. Okay, so then that's it for like the visual of the text, and I'm gonna go back to geometry nodes and get to the animation part. So for the animation part, I'm gonna need something to control the letters. So I'm gonna click on the layout and Shift A and then add an empty sphere. And then I'll go to Object Data Properties and then I'll change the display to be single arrow. And I'm gonna go back to my text and I'm just going to I'll do Shift A and add a Translate Instances node. And what this node does, is in the name, it translates the instances. It translates each of the letters. It moves them. So if I move the X value, it goes left and right. If I do Y, it goes up and down, and Z, it moves forward and backward. So, but I don't want all my letters to be moving at the same time in the same direction. And so in order to kind of combat that, I have this like empty, which I'm going to use as my control. To control my letters and the distance that they move. So I'm going to go to the outliner and I'm going to hover over it, click on it, and then bring that object information node of the empty into this geometry node system. And I'm going to calculate, I'm going to get a vector math node, and I'm going to calculate the distance between these two vectors. What two vectors? The empty and also the position of each of the letters. So I'm going to calculate the distance between the position of each of the letters and the location of the empty, and that value is what's going to determine how far they're going to translate, right? So just to kind of make sense of this, for example, let's look at the letter W. I noticed that it's 0 meters away from the empty, from the controller. So the position over here and the object information, the distance between those two objects is 0, and so that value is 0. And so if I'm going to connect this to the translation, and if the translation is what determines how far I'm going to move, and if the value is 0, it's going to translate 0. See, it kind of stays in the same place, relative a little bit, move to the left, but same thing. All right, so that's kind of the idea, but I don't want it to move in this like weird direction, and so what I can do to control that is I'll do Shift A and combine X, Y, Z and put that in here, and I'll make sure it's connected to Y so it moves in a vertical up and down direction, like on the Y axis. But I also notice another problem. The closer I am to the letter, the lower it is, and the farther I am from a letter, the higher it is. And I want the opposite to happen because as I move my controller across the letters, I want them to go up, right? And that's not going to happen if I'm closer to it and it just stays down. So in order to kind of fix that, I'll do Shift A and get a color ramp and put that right in between the distance and the combine XYZ. And I'm just going to click on the arrow and flip the color ramp. And now it's perfect. Now the closer I am to a letter like W, the higher it is, and the farther I am from a letter, the lower it is. Okay, so that's good. And then that's pretty much it for that. And then if I move my controller, along the x-axis, I notice, that there's no bounce. Oops. All right, so let me see. Object information, location, distance, vector. I did the flip color ramp. This is good. Extrude mesh. Translate instances of the translation, combine XYZ, output. It should work. Weird. That's weird. Maybe we'll fix later. So I'll do Shift A and get a float curve and put that right in here and change this to kind of this way. Let me see if that works now. Why is it not moving? That's so weird. Is that not the control? Put that in here. Location vector. Oops. Oh, there we go. I must have done the cube instead of the controller. All right, so let me go back. GZ. Okay, so as I move, right, at a constant speed throughout the letters, I noticed that they're all traveling at this, well, now they're not traveling at the same speed because I added the flow curve, but without it, it would have traveled at the same speed. And what the flow curve does, it kind of, I'll visualize it for you. So it kind of, the letters go up fast and they slow down at the top like in a mountain, and then they go down fast, but they stay a little bit at the top, right, when the velocity is zero, right, because they have to stop and then go back down, but like, and then they go like, they go fast. So that's what the flow curve is kind of representing. So the speed at which the letters are going up, and they stay up there for a while, and then they go back down fast, which is really cool. Okay, so I think that's it for that. Whoops, let me see. GX. I think that's okay. So now onto the rendering part. So I'll go to layout. So in order to get the animation working for a video, I'm going to pull up my timeline and then press on N. So it's really not that hard. So I'm going to, if I want my video to be like 80 frames, then I'm just going to change the N to be 80. And at the first frame, I want the controller to be at the location right before it starts affecting the letter W, which is kind of about here. That's negative 1.0335 meters. And so in the end panel, I'm going to hover over that location and press I to insert that keyframe, and it's going to appear as a location keyframe, kind of like a yellow diamond in the timeline. And then I'm going to go here to keyframe 80, which is at the end of the video. I want my controller to end up being right after it stops affecting the letter, not the letter, the exclamation point, which is kind of about here, 5.0572 meters. I'm going to hover over that location and insert that keyframe. And now if I play it, it's going to start where I told it to start and end where I told it to end, which is pretty cool. So that's that. That's literally the animation part for the rendering. Now if I go back, not back, but over here to render preview, I'm going to Shift A and add a plane, S to scale it, G, X to move it over to the right. I'm going to press edit mode or tab to get into edit mode. Make sure I'm in edge select the back edge, E to extrude, Z to extrude along the Z axis, which is the blue one. And then I'm just going to kind of make a backdrop. So I'll go to modifiers and add a bevel, and I'll increase the amount and I'll increase the segments, and then I'll do right click shade smooth. I'll make sure I apply the modifier, and then I'll scale by pressing S and then X. All right, so I think that works pretty fine. And I think it looks pretty cool. So I'm going to align my camera to the view now. So I'm going to go, to help me out, I'm going to press the button under the escape key and hover over front. And then I'm going to just play around with that view that I have. And I'm going to do Control Alt and numpad 0, and that aligns my camera to the view. If that doesn't work, go to edit, preferences, input, and then make sure emulate numpad is on. And if it still doesn't work, it's probably because you don't have a camera. So Shift A and add a camera. And then to get out of this view, you click the middle mouse button. To go back into the view, you click on 0. Okay. Or numpad 0. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of it and kind of zoom out, and I think that would be better. Maybe a little bit more to the right would be okay. And then let me see, something like that. And then I could get a background color maybe. What color would be a good color? Maybe like a yellow. I don't think I used all the colors, did I? So maybe I'll go to material properties and change the base color of the backdrop to be something like that. This is the backdrop. Oops. I don't think so. I think it takes a lot out of the code. I meant the letters. Out of here, please. Let me see. What about this? Maybe something like that, or maybe, I don't know, maybe like, ooh, this is pretty cool. I think I like this a lot. I think I'm gonna stick with this. So that color, by the way, is 2D383B. All right, so I think this is the view that I kind of want. I'm gonna stick with, and all I have to do now is Control S to save, go to Output Properties, and then go to Output, and then I'm gonna select the folder where I want all of my 80 frames to render in. And so I'll just go to whatever, I'll go anywhere and I'll create a folder like 8422 woohoo or something, and I'll accept that, and then I'll make sure that the file format is PNG, and then I'll go ahead and render animation, and those 80 frames should render in that photo as PNG in that folder as PNG images. And then the next part would be making it into a video and rendering it as an actual animation, which we'll see in a few seconds. So let me see, where did I have it? Okay. So clearly I'm able to see, the first 3 frames are already rendered, and it's going to take a little while, or it might not, depending on what GPU you have. But yeah. Alright, so I'm able to see all of the 80 frames rendered as PNG images in the folder. So I'm just going to X out of here, X out of there, and I'm going to go to the top and then scroll down until I see the plus sign and go to video editing again, move this little line all the way to the left, and then I'll go to add and I'll add an image sequence, and then I'll just go to that folder that I made today. I'll select the first image and I'll scroll down and shift select the last image, add image strip, and now it kind of puts all the images together in kind of like a video. Now I'll go back to output properties and I'll select a folder where I want the video to be. So I'll just create one and call it video. Accept that, and then the format should be FFmpeg video, and then under encoding the container needs to be mpeg4 for an MP4, and then the output quality should be high quality, and then Control S, and then go to the top, scroll down, render animation, and this should be definitely faster because all the images are already rendered. It's just Blender putting them all together. So I'll wait for that to happen. All right, and when it's done, I can open up that folder, the video folder where I told the video to render in, and that should be over here on my desktop. And this is the final result. All right then.